Hallelujah. Okay, I want to read you some things, some notes that I had made, and these notes come out of some research also that I was doing. Okay. Now I wanted to put this back on the board. Of course, put quite a few other things back. I realize that this stuff might be a little different, or maybe an approach or a thought that you haven't looked at or seen. And all I would ask anybody to do is, check me out. If I'm wrong, I will be the first to admit it. All you have to do is just say, hey, Lynn, it doesn't say that, or it says this, or show me. I'm open. I want to maintain a place of teachableness. I want to be open, both for correction and instruction and teaching. I mean, that's my heart. It really is my heart. And I would say this to anybody, any preacher or theologian or whatever, if you want to challenge me or if you want to correct me, just have the resources available that I can see it myself, because I will give you resources from where I draw what I see and what I say. So I'm not just drawing it from some place lightly. I'm drawing it from a place that in my heart is seriousness of looking for the truth, seeking for that which is what we said last night. We talked about what is the truth. And so I'm not a believer. I'm a seeker. And so my heart is to seek, to find, not to just try to believe something that somebody else has said. Okay? So I know that this is different for most everybody.
Lynn, is the camera on?
I'm sorry?
Is the camera on?
Yeah. Yeah, we're live. Y'all are all on candid camera.
That's right.
And and the importance of this word in Hebrew, and actually throughout all the scriptures, the importance of this word is overlooked and missed by most everybody. And I know most of the preachers that I have studied from, most of the preachers that I have talked to, they take the soul and spirit and kind of use them as synonyms and interchange. And a lot of people think that the soul is the spirit's the soul, and they're not. They're not. They are opposite ends of the polar system. Actually, one of them's male and one of them's female. So spirit is male, the soul is female. In any case you want, it's just like, you have two poles on the battery of a car. You have a positive and negative. And I promise you, if you take the positive pole on the car and you ground that sucker, you got fire on your hands, because it's just going to do that. So they're not changing. They're not interchangeable. They have completely different meanings. In Hebrew, ruach, that's the word for spirit, breath, wind. And the word for soul is in both in Hebrew and in Greek are completely different words. This word for soul is a word where we get psychology from, psyche, or in Greek. It's where we get that word. So always the soul is mental. So it always, soul and mind, and like I showed you this morning, I can take you to literally dozens of scriptures where the same Hebrew word for soul is used for mind, and the same word that's for mind is used for soul. So when you're talking about the soul, you are talking about the mind. And again, I know there's a lot of confusion between a capital M and a little m. My mind, we call it carnal mind. As to the mind of Christ, we call it God's mind. It's all the same mind. It's just one mind.
Right.
It's just
One
mind,
mind.
okay?
Yes.
How we interpret it, how we use it. And here's the unique thing about this energy, this source that we call God. God's not an Indian giver, and what God gave us, He doesn't call back. And as I said this morning, the power's handed over to us. It's in our hands. What we do with it, what we create, it's on me. Mm-hmm. It's not on it, source. That is its source, and all that is amoral. It's not moral or not. It's not.
Neutral. Yeah.
It is a neutral power. It's not condemning or judging us. Oh, you did it wrong. You shouldn't have done it that way. It's your fault. It doesn't work that way. So soul and mind are are the same thing. And then some of the more modern terms that we have added to that. Now, these are modern terms. They're not that old. Now, I'm talking about modern. I'm only going back 100 or 200 or 300 years for these terms. The word soul, I can go back thousands of years. Thousands of years. And it always meant the same thing it means today. It always meant the mind. It always meant the self. It always meant the ego. It always meant the I. You know, and I hear this phrase a lot of times. People say, well, I am. Well, I is the soulish part, and am is the water part. So when you hear Moses up on the mountain dealing with, in Exodus 3, who do they say they am? Aha. That's not Yod-Heh-Vav. That's not Jehovah. That's I am. And that I am is the water, energy, power of creativity that was being confronted in that particular passage of Scripture. That's who I am is. Again, you know, it's like I was doing a study, and I'm still working on this. I want to try to find out how many times the mem or mem final, both represent water, are used just in the first chapter of Genesis, just in that first chapter. And I figure it's well over 100, 150 times. Just that one blip. I know in the first 5 verses, I think it's used like 30 times. Just in 5 verses. And that's profound if you start looking at it and the value of that glib, the mems. And I'll show you and look at these. So, you know, I don't care if you want to put a capital I or a little I, a capital S or a little s. You know, I always tell people you should read Paul Brunton's work. Most people never heard of Paul Brunton. Paul Brunton went to India just like a lot of other gurus. And the thing that Paul Brunton did is he went over there and he extracted from the original Sanskrit. He didn't go over there and westernize. Trying to make the concepts that are over there in Hindu, which is one of the oldest religions outside of Egyptology that we have. They both go hand in hand and both pretty much say the same exact thing. But we have such a westernized ideology of what was said and what went on over there. So the mind, the soul, and here's another one, and this is the only way I know to really describe it. It comes as a child. That's what it comes as a child. But its potential and its aim is to become an adult. And I'm sad to say, or glad to say, that hardly ever happens. Most of us drag a little child our entire life, even though we have an adult body and should have an adult mind. We don't. We have a little child. And we want to beat the little child up, want to get rid of him and call him my ego and say he's damage to me. It's not. It's not. But I realize that we feel that it is, we're taught that it is, we think that it is, but it's not. The mind, the soul of a child needs, emphasis on needs to grow, needs to develop, needs to be educated, needs to be trained, needs to be disciplined into the mind, the soul of the adult that it is designed for. Yet, maintain, now hear this, it needs to grow. It needs to become an adult. Yet, it needs to maintain its childish innocence. It needs to hold on to that. It needs to be mature and adult, but it needs to be like a little child, quick to forgive. Not judgmental.
Yes.
When we become an adult, we become judgmental, critical, condemning. But no, we need to maintain that. These are things that we have to do. This is work that's been given to us, you and me, work that we have to accomplish. And so I have some notes here. I write in these books. Goodness, I write as much as they do sometimes. Let me read you these notes. Found the pages here. That's a good one. That's one I'm looking for. That's a good one too. Oh my, this stuff, this is perfect means only finished, and each stage or process
process reaches its finished form before the next stage begins. Let me emphasize that. That means a child, 6-year-old, that finished the first grade is perfect at that level. Still a child. But when he finished that curriculum, he's perfect at that level. He's grown to that point. At each stage. So, there are perfections at lower levels and at higher, all along the way. A soldier may be a perfect corporal, sergeant, or private. There is a captain, a colonel, and a major, and a general far ahead, if you hear the drift of that terminology. So where you are, you're just at a place in your journey. I mean, it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. I don't care where you are, what age you are, it's irrelevant. You are where you are, and the best place to start is where you are. To go from here. Man's ability to call for help upon a God God is concerned, the only God available to him is the divine potential ensconced within him. And what I'm saying when I say that, what I'm talking about is that place that person has developed that God that's within him. That's the only place that God within him can conform or what's the word I'm looking for? Respond for him or her. That God is available and accessible to man, and that man's God is divine and constituent of his own nature, is the prime revelation of truth that philosophy should have made to humanity. That goes on. That man himself is a unit of the universal divine, a fragment of God's own life. It's a fragment of God itself. It can't be nothing less than that. It has to be that and no less. It should enhance the glory of this self. This self, ego, soul. The soul didn't come here. The soul came here with the potential and ability of the divine because it is an outcropping of the divine source. So it has that potentiality within it. Yet it comes here as a child to grow and to mature and to become developed. So the self in each individual of God's own selfhood, generally for a new cycle of creation to cry for the destruction of this entity is foolish. If you want to destroy yourself, you want to destroy your soul? I don't think so. I really don't think so. The word self, or in other words, the I, the me, myself, my soul, the ego, you, this is what is God-like. This is God-like. That's what's God-like. In other words, this is what's in it. Divine within it, every human born on this planet. It comes here as a child. It's hungry to learn. It needs to be trained. And it needs discipline. It does not need destruction or violation. It gets violated enough. That's one of our great problems. Soul's been violated. And I don't mean that disrespectfully toward anybody. I'll speak it to myself. My parents violated my soul, had no idea that they were doing it. They didn't mean to. They were innocent in the fact that they had experienced the same identical things. And everybody's violations are different. There ain't nobody. You have to experience yourself. You got to own yourself. You got to forgive those. I remember I used to be kind of angry at my daddy for a while, and when I was 16, I knew a lot more than my daddy. I did. You know what I mean? But I found out later on, the old man knew a whole lot more than I gave him credit for. You know? It does not need destruction or annihilation. It needs to be loved. And it needs to be loved through clarity. Hear this. It needs to be loved through clarity. We need to get clear on what we have, what we need to do, what we're called to do to this child inside us. It needs to be loved through clarity and through balance. And those are things I know, these are things that cropped up or rose up inside me. I've not read any of this anywhere. These are things that have come up in me out of my own research and study, and I see this. I see how this aspect of our being hungers, longs, cries for us. Many times, that's a lot of what's going on inside us. We don't realize it's that little child said, love me. Give me something clear I don't understand. Show me. Discipline me. Teach me. Train me. That's just what it's longing for. Well, let me read notes in this book. I have so many notes in some of these books. Everyone experiences the two births, which we talked about this morning. Everyone experiences the two births. The natural, this is water birth, and the spiritual, this is his fire birth. We humans spend the first 6 to 7 years getting lost in the natural, the physical. You remember this morning when I talked about the Sukikikos, the natural? We spend our first 6 or 7 years literally burying ourselves in that. Burying ourselves in the wonder of it. I mean, the first 7 years, we are more than the sponge. We learn so much, not because we're sitting in front of a teacher. We're just exposed to everything, and we have filters, we have sensors, we are reaching out, we are getting stuff. We're listening to things we shouldn't be listening to, and we're drawing conclusions, and all this stuff is going on, and we're just 5, 6, 7 years old. It's not right or wrong. It just happens. We have sensation. We get touched. We get, oh God, I just like to get graphic, but people think I would get X-rated. But things happen to us when we're children because we are so sensitive and so not sensitive in that, oh, don't touch me. We just have such a sensation in this physical body mass that we've got. And it feels good. It feels wonderful. You want it to be touched. And many times it don't need to be touched by something or somebody or someplace, etc., etc. But these things happen to us in those first 6, 7 years. And we get lost in this natural manifest world. Not wrong. This natural manifest world is God's idea. This is not a joke. This is not a mistake. That you see out there is as divine can ever be. This source does not want to burn it up, blow it up, flood it, and destroy it. That's man's idea. Yes. God's deposited itself. The source has deposited itself in everything that's out there in nature. We spend all of our energy getting lost in all of our parents, and I put a parenthesis here. If our parents are divorced, whoever our caregivers may be at that point in time, we spend a lot of our time getting lost in these caregivers or whatever, in their drama. We don't mean to. We just get lost in it. I know you didn't hear them if they were screaming or hollering or cussing or fighting or whatever they did. They did. They didn't mean to. Happen, don't it? What was that little sticker? Shit happens. It just does. It just does. It does. And it's not somebody's fault. If you're mad at somebody because it happened to you, my advice to you would be forgive them and forgive yourself. Yeah. Release it. Own it. Yes. Own it. Embrace it. Don't think that it was something horrible and bad. Just own it and embrace it. These things were not right or wrong. we're just like a sponge. We just draw all of this stuff into us and unto us. See if I got all I wanted to get out of this that I wrote here. Matter forms humanity, and in the darkness of the time, humanity is born only to be filled with the timeless. As the sun rises in the east, and the spirit fire of God rises, it rises in its creation to live as the timeless spirit in its creation, which is matter, which is us. Time thus, God becomes man, and as man becomes God. Selah. You can just think about that. The two, which again, when I put it on the board this morning, the two, Echad, is becoming one. That's the purpose. It's to become one. It's to merge itself back with itself, so that it and itself is just one. It's just one self. Okay, if you will go with me to Psalms chapter 8, I want to revisit this for just a minute. Psalms chapter 8, verse 4. You know, if I get overwhelmed with something that I'm not saying something clear, if you want to raise your hand or ask a question or interject or whatever you need to do, that way we can all stay on the same page. Psalms chapter 8, look at verse 4. It says, "What is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visited him?" And again, I told you this morning, this word visited, palkad, actually means deposited, committed. And I want you to hear that. I would be better off to read it this way and say, "What is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you have committed to him?" What did it commit? It committed itself to you. It deposited itself in you, as you, the way you are, because you're not a mistake. It bestowed itself upon you. That's what that word means. That's what it should be translated as. "For thou art made a little lower than the angels." Actually, it just says you come in calibrated order. You come under godhood. "And has crowned him with glory and honor, and has made him to have dominion." This word dominion, I want you to look at that word. Mashal. Mashal. It's Mim, Shin, Lamim. I'll put these words up here, or these glyphs. Mim, Shin, Lamim. Lamim has a 30 value, which means that the Lamim is the teacher. Sheen has a 300 value, and it has to do with fire and breath. And Mim has a 40 value. And everywhere you find 40, just about throughout Scripture, you find 40 in the place of something being proven, tested, or tried. That's how we look at it. Like 40 years in the wilderness, Jesus 40 days out in the wilderness, etc. All of these terms and all these terminologies, Mim refer to water. Water is the place where this test or this trial or this time is taking place. And of course that water is inside you and me. So that glyph right there, the dominion, that's what the word means. Thou hast dominion. Mashal, which means power. That's what it means. It means power. And God deposited that in you. So you have that. And we use that, but many times we don't know we use it. We use it with the seeds of the words of our mouth. And the seeds of the words of your mouth are not paying attention to the attitude you have when you use the seeds of the words of your mouth. You ever say things in the seeds of the words of your mouth and the wrong attitude? Say, "I wish I hadn't said that." And could bring it back. I've done that quite often myself. I wish I hadn't said that, but I did. And so maybe it didn't come out the way I wanted it to. didn't work the way I had hoped it would work. So these symbols and these glyphs, like in the Hebrew, when I'm dealing with the mem, and I'm talking about water, I want you to, the word for water in Hebrew is this. It's mem, yod, mem. The two mems in the Hebrew alphabet, there's the first mem, which has a 40 value, and then there's the last mem that has a 600 value. And there's a word, now I can take one Hebrew glyph and add it to this. This is the word right here for water. That is the word for water, mem, yod, mem. So it's water. Yod is 10, which has, Yod has the male-female energy power about it. And the final mem is 600. Okay, that's the word for water. I add one glyph to this. That glyph right there, that's the sheen. 300, that's breath or fire. That's the word for heaven. And it hasn't got anything to do with something somewhere out yonder. It has to do with this right here. It has to do with the waters which are above, and the waters which are below. The waters which are above and the waters which are below. And those two waters are to be merged and to be made one. And of course, if I were to take the stick man and draw the stick man and put that line through the middle of his heart, that's an imaginary line. It don't exist. It's a nadir point, to be honest with you. It is the nadir point where it begins, it comes down to that journey, then it begins its next journey to its next nadir point. Just like we discussed this morning. So if I look at the stick man, I would find the waters above, these are the waters above, and these are the waters below. And it always comes up to 3.5. So when I come to the book of Revelations, when I get over to the book of Revelations, you know what I'll find as a predominant number? 7. And how is that 7 worked out? In 3.5s and 3.5s. It's predominant, but, and we don't pay attention to it. The 7 churches become the 3.5 and the 3.5 and the 3.5. Always. Why? Because it deals with this nadir point. This is an imaginary place. It doesn't exist. But it's where the waters above come down and the waters below come and meet, and the waters are merged together so that the waters are echad. That means to make the two one. They become one. So that means that your higher nature and your lower nature, your godly nature and your human nature, are designed to be one nature. Not two separate natures. One nature. And that one nature is divine of God. Design of God. Here we go. Y'all, I talked about this book, this little book this morning, and I was just wondering how many of you have read this book. Have y'all ever did it?
I had never found it.
Y'all wrote on your water glasses? You did write on your water glasses,
Yes.
didn't you? Why did you do that?
Because I believe I've heard.
Or
and
you
seen
heard
some
somebody
of
tell
that
you.
stuff. And I've also seen some videos about it, but I haven't looked.
This was his first little book. This is the one that became the New York Times bestseller. His others are just as good. I want to read you this. Water has the ability to copy and to memorize information. We may also say that the water of the oceans has memories of the creatures that live in the oceans. And I've said this, and I will give you this illustration. I got this one out of the 4th phase of water, which was printed in 2012. And it says this: water can read you when you come up to it, or you go in it. Water can read you, and now listen to this. Water can float you, or water can drown you. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
How many of you can float?
A little bit.
You know why you can't float?
Oh.
You're afraid. And you know what? Isn't it amazing? The same water that can hold you up can open up and bring you in.
Yeah.
It ain't no different.
That's true.
The water is brilliant. it's reading it. It knows what you, I can lay there and float on it. I mean, I've been around it, so I'm not afraid of it. I learned to relax in it. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that till I read this book or until I read the fourth phase of water. And then I realized, oh, okay, then that's how I always wondered, you know, why do people drown? I mean, why do they drown when they can swim or float? I mean, they do. The Earth's glaciers may well contain millions of years of the planet's history. And I think we're finding that true now through
Oh, yeah.
many of the things that they're doing. I see on the History Channel where they're finding all kinds of stuff out. Isn't it in Antarctica? All
Yes,
kinds.
yeah, they found a deep cavern in a city underneath there.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Water circulates around the globe, flowing through our bodies and spreading to the rest of the world. To understand water is to understand the cosmos and the marvels of nature and life itself. The realization that water has the ability to copy information has changed my life. And making this discovery in America, I brought it back with me to Japan and have since used information copying function of water to help people recover their health. At that time, however, doctors would not even consider the possibility that water by itself had healing capability. I was and I am fully convinced that water has the ability to memorize and to transport information, but this suggestion has been met with complete rejection by the medical community. I wonder why. I wonder why. Is it amazing? Yeah.
Which NIM is the waters below, the 40 or the 600?
Okay, the 40, the MIM, the 40 with the sheen, these are the waters above.
Okay.
This is both of these are water. See, like for instance, this MIM has a 40 value. So if you drop the 0 and you realize it's just got 4, you're going to find 4 becomes important, especially when you're dealing with the material earth, because this material earth is basically set up on the concept of 4, north, south, east, and west.
Right.
So when you get to this globe that we are on, you'll see that this is the 40 of the physical, but it's filled with the fire of the spirit, so it makes it the waters from above.
Okay.
Now this MIM is 600 value. So because it's made up of 3 glyphs, or 3 characters, 6003, it's, when it comes from God, it has only 1 character in it, 1 through 9. All of those numbers are patterns of divine energy in material movement, in material manifestation. All of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
Then when you come to all the numbers that are like 10 through 90, and I talk about in Hebrew, especially in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew,
Yeah.
all of these deal with duality. This is where the 2 have become molded together to be 1. So that's why this one deals with the material duality world. And then when you come to the glyphs that's 100 through 900, this is from God, this is through God, and this is back to God. You follow that? And so the glyphs, when you see these glyphs, let me put my other 0. When you see these glyphs, you know, and I realize it's not simple to memorize all this to get to this place. It takes a lot of work and a lot of study. But when you get here, I mean, you know, I can't sit down and read my Hebrew Bible and pronounce the way that they put the vowel points in it, but I can sit down and read the thing by its numeric value and just simply by the glyphs themselves. So it's not like I'm sitting there reading a novel. It's like I'm sitting there and decoding that code. That's all I'm doing, is decoding the code, because I memorize the letters, I memorize the meanings, I memorize what the glyphs mean, and so then I can decode a word. I can take any word in Hebrew and decode the thing in just a minute. And I don't have to go to Strong's dictionary to try to find out what he had to say, because he was a Presbyterian and everything he had to say was filtered through the concept of Presbyterian Christianity. Not right or wrong, not anything like that. That was where he was. That's all he had. But I thank God that he did that because he gave me a numbering system that I can use when I go back to the Hebrew. Helps me. It helps me a lot, especially if I'm doing research or if I'm doing study. So these are the waters above. So you know, when I look at the word mem, mem, and I realize this is the word for water, and then I look at the word just by adding a sheen to the front of it, and that's the word for heaven. And I'm starting to think, wait a minute, that's a water word. Water word is material. You don't think of materiality when you get to heaven. Most people think when they get to heaven, they're still going to have their senses, and they're going to have their body, and it's just going to be happy there. It's not ever going to be a cloudy day. Be an all uncloudy day. Hallelujah. And they're going to know everybody, and everybody's going to be walking around. We're going down Golden Street. Ain't we wonderful? It ain't that way. I'm telling you, that's the biggest fairy tale we've ever believed, folks. And it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's not what it is. It is not like that. Here is where it's at. Here is where heaven is here. Now, there are a lot of ancient writings, especially in Greek, when you get to Uranus or Epi-Uranus, which is the Greek word for heaven. And all it means is just above, or air, or space, which is the most accurate words that we could use instead of using the word heaven. We could use the above, or we could use the atmosphere, or we could just use space. Because there's nowhere that space is not. Nowhere. Space is everywhere, whether it's in small areas or massive areas. There's nothing that don't have space in it, and there's nothing that's not in space. Isn't that a conundrum? Nothing. Zero. So space fills all, and space is in all. It's just like when you break down an atom, a sail. You break a sail down. 98% of that the sail is made up of, 98% of it is space. We would say it's empty space. There's nothing there. That's because we're trained with a Western mindset to realize really everything is there. It's not that there's nothing there. When I say no thing in Hindu or in Sanskrit, I'm saying everything is there. The potential is unlimited. It's beyond anything we can comprehend.
No such thing as empty space.
So this word water and this word we have been empowered as a water material, physical vessel to be a whole lot more than we have been being. So I thank God we're working on being more than what we have been designed to be.
Come here.
Let me read you this. Well, it's right now. Look at it, stay right open. That thing is strange, what that is. Right on the spot. Our journey here, in other words, in the earth, can be of 4 choices. It could be more. These are just some things that I wrote, just because it was just coming through me at that point in time. Our journey here on earth can be one of 4 choices. And I'm saying it can be one of 4 choices. I am saying our journey here is made up of choices. Well, you are not a robot. I don't care what you do. You are not. God will not make you do anything. The source will not make you. It will not make you. The source may lead you to the water, but it will never force you to drink the water. It just flat will not. It will let you and me do whatever we're going to do. Our journey here on earth can be one of 4 choices. It can be neutral, where you get nothing and very little from it. You know anybody like that? Most people I know is like that. It's like people say, well, I don't want to go to church. And I don't blame them. I said, I wouldn't either. But you should make yourself the church. You should make yourself the place or the disciplines that you need to fulfill your life are at.
That's right.
So, you can make the first choice, which is neutral. You get nothing and very little from it. I'm just a pilgrim passing through. And because that's a choice that most people, a large portion of people make, or it could be a mixture of sadness and happiness. Mixture. Sadness and happiness. Bad things happen, good things happen. It's just mixture. That's okay. Or it could be hell on earth from the pains, the sadness. You get to pick and choose that. It could be a hell on earth from the pain, the sadness that can be inflicted upon you. And I'm using the word inflicted because I'm saying not everything that happens to us, or not everything that comes our way, are things that we necessarily did right or wrong. What do I mean by that? You could be violated. Could be. You could be violated. Something could have happened in your life from someone else. That could have happened. Or number 4, it can be heaven on earth because you wake up to your true self and your true purpose and design. We don't live by destroying our life. You're not going to live by killing anything of this part of you, or destroying it, or getting rid of it. You don't live by destroying your life. Or living in the past, we're fighting a devil. You remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, I used to. I can go back 30-something years ago, 35 years ago, and I used to have the men gathered together down at the church at 6 o'clock. Every one of them that would get up and come down there, we would gather down there at 6 o'clock every morning, and from 6 o'clock until 7 o'clock, we chased the devil all over the place. We cast him out of everything we could think of. We chased him from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And we called upon God to get rid of him and clear the land, bless God. We're taking our city, we're taking our town, we're taking over. And we're driving the devil out. We did that. I did that. I did that relentlessly for quite a number of years. Could you not tear him one out? Y'all might not have got into Larry's book like we did. We in the past were fighting the devil, we're fighting Satan. Then we realized, then we got the revelation that I'm the devil. I got to look in the mirror. Whoa, wait a minute. I'm my own devil. The devil is me. So we got that revelation. Now, we think we have to fight ourselves. Now I've got to fight the little child in me. Now I've got to fight my ego. So we're always looking for something to fight. Have you ever noticed that? We want to kill something, destroy something, or run it off. We hardly ever want to embrace it and try to stay there long enough with it to see what's going on. What's the problem here? Why am I so upset? Why am I so tore up about this? We want to fight these things. We want to fight the self. These are all synonyms. They refer to the same thing. They were all of this. Whatever you're fighting, whatever you're chasing, it's all referring to the mind. It's right there at the battle. And you see what I did? I did that, and I remember I was thinking about that, and I said, I think I'll do an illustration. I will say, everybody point to your mind. I saw myself saying this and doing this. Y'all do that. Point to your mind. Point to your mind. Point to your mind.
It's not even.
That's not where your mind is at. That's where your brain is at. Because you see, you think your brain is your mind, and your brain is not. Your brain is an organ. Your heart is an organ. Your bladder are organs. Your mind is an information machine that's like a river or like a lake or like an ocean that carries thoughts. And in those, it carries all manners of thought. All manner of fish swim in the mind. All of them, clean, dirty, good, evil, bottom crawlers, top riders, all manner of fish, thoughts swim in the mind. And many times, you know, many of them just pass on by. You didn't hear them, you didn't pick them up. They were still swarming and swimming. And then sometimes you get one, you ever got one that just wouldn't let go?
Yeah.
And you just thought and thought, and it would just hang on. I've had some of them hang on for 2 or 3 days. Get out of here, you know. The mind is not up here. This is not your mind. This is your brain. The mind is more or less all here. all around here, everywhere. The mind is an information. It carries thoughts. It remembers. It has a memory bank. It carries all these things. Not right, wrong, not good or bad. It just is. It's there. Now go with me to Genesis chapter 1. Let me move on here real quickly. And Genesis chapter 1, or chapter 2, I'm sorry, Genesis chapter 2. Verse 7, it says, "The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And the Lord God planted a garden," everybody say Gan, Hebrew, Gan, G-A-N, Gan, can y'all say that? Gan, that's a garden. The word Gan means a protected place. As like I told you this morning, it's like the embryonic sac. That's the Gan that protects that. It protects that fetus as it's growing in there. It's like the membrane around a cell. It's like the skin around your body. It's a protected place. And that's what he's referring to. It's when he says that. The garden, and you see the word eastward? Everybody say eastward? When you see the word eastward, think of inward. Because the word eastward is where the sun, we're going back to this morning's astrological chart, when the sun is rising, the sun, as it rises, it goes into the day, into the facets of life. And that's what that eastward. So the sun is going into, the rising of the sun, the power of the energy is going eastward into where? Into Eden. Into Eden. And so we have all been taught that that is a garden of bliss somewhere in the Middle East, and it's not there anymore, and we're still looking for it wherever it could be. But the word Eden, and it comes from three different glyphs, Ayin, Dalit, and the final non, and it actually just simply means time. Time. You can't get past that. You can't even live in this dimension without time. If time ceases to be, you ain't going to be here no more. We'll look at you tomorrow in your coffin and say, "Wow, don't they look natural?" You ain't going to be here. If you want to exit from time, you're not going to be here, because if you're going to be here, you're going to be in time. And that's not a bad thing. That's a phenomenal and a marvelous thing. Made eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. That's where God puts you. That's where God wants you. That's where you're put. That's your deposit. Verse 9, "And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that's pleasant to the sight, good for food, the tree of life. Also in the middle of the garden, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And a river." All of a sudden now we're going back to water. Notice this. "A river went out of time," Eden, "and watered the protected place." Now, isn't that so true? Mm-hmm. What happens when the water breaks in a woman?
The baby's coming.
Baby's coming.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? The water breaks. But where's that baby been? It's been in the ocean, this protected place. And then boom, it comes out. Well, you know when it comes out, now then, the vessel has another protected place. It's called the skin, and it's still a water vessel. It's still a water vessel. We're still this water vessel. And then it said, Eden in the garden, and from thence it was what? It parted and it became what? Four. It became four heads. Let's do our circle again. It became four. Now this is really old and ancient mythology, and especially if you want to go into the book of Ezekiel, if you want to go into the book of Jeremiah, you want to go into the book of Revelation, you're going to see all four of these heads of this river. And in ancient Hebrew, you can do it like this: Yod, Hey, Vav Hey. And here's what you're going to call that, the Lord. And that ain't Jesus, and that ain't God, and then people get so confused with that. No, man is the Lord of this dominion.
Yes.
You are. We are the Lord. And we are these north, south, east, and west. We are the bull, the lion, the eagle, and the man. You're all of those things. When you go to Ezekiel and you're seeing all these wheels and all these heads turning and they got all this stuff, you get so confused. If you would put it back in the astrological wheel where it belongs and you realize I'm a product of that wheel, and every day that wheel from 6 to 8, I'm getting the energy from that. From 8 to 10, I'm getting the energy from that. From 10 to 12, I'm getting the energy from that. From 2 to 4, I'm getting the energy from that. From 4 to 6, etc., etc. If I would realize that every day I'm being energized by this source is living me.
Yes.
This source is living through me, as me, and it's experiencing all that I'm experiencing. It's not judging, it's not condemning. I feel surely it's wooing us many times to say, come on, there's a little bit more, a little better, a little stronger, it's a little bit more that we can work here that works better for you. And then he goes on here and he said, it became 4 heads. The name of the first was Pison. And so, archaeologically, they have gone to try to find this place called Pison, but actually Pison means the carrier. Listen to the meaning of this word Pison. It means the carrier to the highest degree. In other words, it's the Spirit working in consciousness in man. So that's your first river, Pison. It's not somewhere in the Middle East. And the only reason they tried to do that is because they do actually have a river over in the Middle East named after one of these rivers, but they can't find the rest of them. Can't even find where they could have possibly been. I mean, it should tell them, look, it's not a history book. It's a mystery book. It's a mystery book about the greatest mystery that's ever been, and that is you. You and me. It's the physical body. So this first river, Pison, is the carrier to the highest degree. It's Spirit working in the consciousness of man. And notice what it says about this river. The Pison is compassed about the whole land of where? Havilah. Havilah means circular, or to travail, or to bring forth through effort. What's happening when that child, the water breaks, and all of a sudden it's what? It's coming out. It's coming out of there. That's what Havilah means. It's beginning to move forward. It speaks of the inner travail that's necessary to bring the manifestation of the spiritual possibilities. How many of you have ever felt or sensed or did that?
Yeah.
If you haven't, you should. What does that mean, travail? Inner travail to bring forth another spiritual thing in my life. Many times for me it's, oh, God! It's like that. It's powerful. It's strong. Many times it pulls it. As many times I go up the road sometimes and just travail. Not any different than a woman that's having a baby. That's what travail is. It's bringing forth. Sometimes we got to do that. There's your first. Did we just get to one river? God, this is the first river here. This is the first one. And the name of the second river was Gihon. And the word Gihon means formation or formative or movement. It is the divine breath purifying the blood in the lungs as it flows in the dark places of your physical body, creating movement. Is that not the first thing that happens when that comes, the water breaks and it's out? What's the first? If it don't do this, it ain't going to be there. It has to energize those lungs with air, with oxygen. It has to get that oxygen into the blood to plump it through the system to get it going. Well, that's your Gihon right there. Purifying the blood with the flow of the air through the lungs into the darkened places. And then, of course, notice where this is at. Gihon, the name of this river, where does it pass through? The whole land of where? Darkness. Oh, in the depth of the matter of the water is dense and dark. And I pray that we can hear this. In the depth of that matter is beyond creative, beyond any ability of us to think about creativeness. Water can just create anything and everything, and it does. Things you like and things you don't like. And especially when you sow a seed and you put a seed in that water is just going to go to it and say, okay, you gave it to us, we're going to make it live. Oh my God, we make a lot of stuff live we wish wouldn't live, and I do, or I'd have. I'd like to see something else happen to it. Verse 14. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. It is it which goeth forth to the east of Assyria. Hiddekel. And Hiddekel actually means the generative fluids which propagate. And by the way, there are actually the number four generative fluids in the physical body. I think one is blood, I think one is urine, I think one is spit, I think the other is saliva. I think all four of those.
It's all the same thing in semen, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Name them again, I think you call spit
One of
and
them
saliva, it's
is
same
the
thing.
blood. One of them is the urine.
Mhm. Saliva.
One of them is the saliva,
And one is the semen.
and one is the seed. So those are the four rivers, the four fluids. And this stream, that we talked about here at Hiddekel generates these fluids. This stream of nerve fluids invigorates the body temple. In other words, you and me. It's eastward or inward of Assyria. And if you notice, it says that. It goes forth. Where did I get to? Yeah, and the fourth one, Euphrates. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And the word Euphrates means the bloodstream itself, supplying substance for the entire body temple of God. So there's your four rivers. Every one of us have them, every one of us are made up of them, and every one of them are partial to them. So go with me now to Revelation chapter 1. I'm just going to quit and disconnect here. I didn't even scratch the strap, to be honest with you. Too much. Revelation chapter 1 and verse 1, it says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants the things which must shortly, and the word shortly actually in the Greek is tachos, and it actually means very quick, speedily, happens. In other words, not 2,000 years later. Come to pass. And he sent and signified. The Greek word for signify is semanio, which means to show in signs and symbols. So the book is set up on signs and symbols to show that which comes forth very speedily, which is actually the manifestation of the physical body. And this is what it begins to be about. And so when John is having this experience, he goes over and he says, drop down to verse 10, it says, and I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me. If you look the word up in the Greek, behind me, he actually is saying, I heard this in my back. Very important. Not behind me, but in my back. Actually, he goes into another place over here in chapter 5, verse 1. It says, and I saw in his right hand of him that sat upon the throne a book written how?
Within
And what?
backside.
again, the backside, or in your back, actually it's referring to your spinal column, your brain. Because your brain, if you pulled your brain out of your head, I remember going to the neurologist, and actually he gave me his brain, because we got to talking about things, and I started sharing stuff with Scripture every time we go in there, and it blew him away. He said, "Man, I don't know where you come up with all this." It intrigued him. So I said, "Well, I really like your little brain." I take it apart, and I said, "Well, this is this, and this is what this means." And he just sat there, "What?" And so he finally said, "Here, you can have my brain." I had it. It's downstairs in the box. It's got his brain. And so he had another one that was over there on the stand like this. And I told him, I said, "That's the one I really want." I was being greedy. I know what I didn't mean to be. That's the one I really did mean. That's the one I want, because it showed the whole brain. It didn't just show this. You see, if you saw your whole brain, in other words, if someone got a hold of your head and pulled your brain out of your head, it wouldn't just be your brain. It would be your neck and your entire spinal column, all the way down to your sacred nerve, down at the very lower base. That's your brain. It's all one piece. It's not just this thing up here on top of your head. It's the whole thing. It looks like a snake. That's exactly what it looks like, especially down your backside. And this is exactly what John is describing right here. If you look at this,
You think the serpent, don't you?
it is the serpent. It is the snake. And it is the serpent on the pole. What's the pole? It's your backbone.
Yes.
And actually, that's something that John said this morning. And I was thinking about it, and I could describe it this way: the caduceus, which you put the staff up here, and you put the serpent as the serpents, and you can do it this way. Most of the time it's not done this. Most of the time it's circular, but you can actually do it this way. You can run it up parallel, I think was John's word. You can actually run it parallel up the backbone, because it does. And have you ever heard that your right brain controls your left side, and your left brain controls your right side? Why would that? It's because it has a parallel nerve. It has a serpent on a pole. I mean, everything I'm telling you is ancient. It's not history. These are truths that are embedded in stone in Egypt. And so when you start to see that this is the description that God, this is the most symbolic book that we have in the entire Bible, and God hasn't been butchered up. They made it what they call a prophecy. And if you look at the word, the Hebrew, the Greek word for prophecy actually means to tell the future. In other words, it sees ahead of its time. It's not just looking at the present moment. It's not looking at the past. The soul is stuck in the past. It's looking into the future. And when you see what he's saying, he says, watch this. Where did I get to? He said, verse 10, "And I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard behind me," in other words, in my back. He heard his brain talking to him in his back. He wasn't talking to him in words, he was talking to him in sound. Behind me in my back, a great voice. Sounds like a trumpet. And come down with me. Verse 12. "And I turned to see." And if you look at the word turn here, it's actually the word epistreso, and it actually means I converted myself and stepped inside myself.
I turned inward.
Turned inward. If somebody tapped him on the back, he turned around and looked at him and said, "What you talking about?" He listened inside him. That's where the deposit, and I turned to see the voice that spake within me. And being turned, what did he saw? He saw the stick man. Literally, it's what he saw. He saw the stick man. He saw the 7 golden candlesticks. And the 7 golden candlesticks, I've taught it many, many times. I've showed you the 7 golden candlesticks, the 7 rainbows, all are referring to the 7 endocrine glands that are all up and down the spinal column in your back. all of them there to life you, to show you, to help you, to give the energy and the strength. Verse 17. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet, one dead. You know, everybody thought he saw Jesus. He didn't. He saw himself. He actually saw the picture of himself.
Yes.
He saw who he was. I'll tell you, that humble any one of us,
Yeah.
Yes.
if we see ourselves.
Yes. What he saw inside himself.
Amen.
If we can do, if we would do that, we can do that. He saw himself. And verse 20 says, "And the mystery of the 7 stars, which you saw in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlestick, and the 7 stars." Notice what it says. Are the angels, it says angels, I'm going to tell you, it's actually these angels that I gave you this morning that you have here, these 12 angels in the astrological wheel. I saw the 7 stars, which are the angels of the 7 churches, the 7 ecclesia. And the word ecclesia, I'm just going to quit right here at this place because there's so much, that, especially when if I get into the seven churches, the names, everything about them, and especially when we get into chapter 4,
Teaching it.
chapter 5, ecclesia, churches. Just listen to this. It's really profound and beautiful. If you get it, I pray you can. Ecclesia comes from 2 different words. It comes from the Greek word ek or ex, E-X or E-K. And the word ek or ex, E-X, means origin, or it means the point or the place where motion, mobility, or gesture comes from. It's in you. It's inside you. That's what it said. It said an origin. And then the second part of that word is keleo, keleo, and actually it means to speak loud. So ecclesia means I'm going to the place inside me where I draw the words out from me.
Oh, amen. Yes.
Those are the 7 churches. Those are the 7 stars. Those are the 7 eyes. Those are the 7 spirits. Oh my God, you go on through the book, they are the 7 of everything. And every one of us have them. Every one of them have been deposited with it. And so when you go to look into that and you start drawing that out of you, I'll tell you one thing it has done for me, and it does, and I try to watch it. It helps me keep a watch on my word. To keep a guard on the things that I say. I might not always be successful at it. I get caught in the moment. Every now and then. But when I begin to see really what is the 7 churches, what am I? Who am I? We're the most marvelous, most wonderful,
Yeah.
most glorious thing that's ever been made.
Yes. The 7 chakra energy centers, which are the 7 wells from whence we dig deep to draw out the water.
Yes.